Apple's MacBook Air is one of the best-selling laptops in the world, and if anything, one of the most ubiquitous. You've seen one at a university, you've seen one at a coffee shop, and today we get another new MacBook Air. This is the MacBook Air M4, now upgraded with, as I just said, M4, their latest and greatest chip. Look at that. There's also, if you're seeing right here, this sexy new color. What is this called? Sky blue or something like that? Sky blue, wow. That looks pretty sharp, hey? I just need to mention here that this is pretty much the same color as my M3, which is Silverstone, and they call it sky blue, and it looks pretty much the same. Just saying, just saying. In the box here, we've got typical Apple propaganda. I miss Apple stickers. I know that they don't do them anymore, but I think honestly that's kind of a crime. We've got a sleeved MagSafe to USB-C cable here, which is about this long. And then a power brick. What is this? 30 watt USB-C power adapter that comes by default, but if you upgrade from the base model, which is what we have here, you can get a 35 watt dual USB-C power brick or a 70 watt, which is the max charging rate that this thing can handle. But by default, you get that 30. I like this because in like direct light, and honestly on this top-down camera, the color of this thing looks like almost OG just Mac gray, especially like there. But then looking at it in person off axis, it looks like it's super blue off axis. Yeah, it doesn't show up well on camera, but it genuinely is pretty blue. Now right off the bat, on the top here, this thing, as far as I can see, is identical to last generation in terms of dimensions, in terms of weight. Aside from the new color, you could totally fool your friends saying, oh, I've got the new MacBook Air. It's so nice. Even the M2 looked the same, so there's not so much of that like, I need to flex on my friends factor these days with Apple, which is kind of interesting. Now speaking of being identical, the I/O is also practically identical. 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on one side, 2 USB-C ports, and the MagSafe charging port. Outside wise, man, they might as well be the same laptop. But inside, just kidding, it's also the same. You've got the same size trackpad, the same size screen, the same specs on the screen, same resolution, same brightness, no high refresh rate, which, oh man, I really thought this year was gonna be the year, but no. We still have the same 60 Hertz liquid retina display that's around 500 nits brightness, not the fancier screens from any of the MacBook Pros. No high refresh rate to be seen, unfortunately. Now in terms of what is inside the insides of this laptop, that new M4 chip is coming with 2 more cores, which is pretty nice. They're efficiency cores, so nothing too crazy in terms of performance buff, but you will see seemingly some amount of performance increase. There must be. We'll get into the labs testing in a bit. And then we're also getting a bit of a RAM bump, which is yes and no. Apple, when they launched the M3 Air, had an 8 gigabyte base model option, which they later discontinued so that the base model was actually 16 gigs and didn't change the price. This new generation, they're not making that same mistake again. The base model is 16 gigs, but you can also go higher this time around. So instead of the max being 24 gigs on the top spec model, you can actually go all the way up to 32, which is a nice buff. It also technically has a tiny bit bigger battery. You're talking like 1 watt-hour difference. And they don't rate the listed battery performance any differently. And at least based on what I know from the M4 MacBook Pro, the M4 chips tend to draw a tiny bit more power, so I suspect that's probably just trying to compensate for that. Now speaking of the M4 MacBook Pro, compared to that, you're getting a lower starting storage, 256 instead of 512. You're getting 2 less GPU cores at base, so only 8 instead of 10. And then you're also, like I mentioned before, getting a lower refresh rate, less bright screen. That being said, it's a fair bit cheaper. This new laptop, $100 less, $999 USD, which is still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but we're in a different era. I was talking to Bell, our short circuit producer, a little bit earlier. He's got an M1 MacBook Air. I'm like, aside from the looks and a couple other things, performance-wise, do you really desire for a new one? And he was like, meh. This laptop is gonna last a long time. So that $1,000 US, while it is a lot of money, is an investment that I actually think will have decent returns in the long run. If you just need a laptop to do stuff. And it's no slouch. It's not just a spreadsheets and email machine. This thing can cook a little bit. Other than that, I just gotta show you this. Our sponsor, just kidding, it's not on the screen. Bam, it's actually right here. It's frickin' dbrand, baby. And look at these skins, wow. Look at this crazy design. This is their X-ray line of skins, which as the name implies, they X-ray scanned these MacBooks, and that's what the internals kind of look like. It's so high tech, you can even see the Apple logo. That's a talking point they gave us, so I had to make sure that I hit it. You're welcome, dbrand. Now I'm gonna try to apply this live, but if you are bad at this, even though dbrand has some great instructional videos, it's a 2-for-1 deal. So you get both the dark skin and the light version, and you can kind of decide which one you want. Look, it looks kind of like Bell's, but like more cooler. See? He's used to being slightly less cool than me. So get your dbrand skin for your MacBook Air M4 or any other of the devices that they make skins for at the link down below or at shortlinus.com. That's a great domain. Now the MacBook Air 13 doesn't have top firing speakers, so if you are really into listening to music, you should buy speakers. Or a 15-inch MacBook Air, I guess. That is also technically an option. Oh, you know what? Maybe you can kind of say that they are kind of top firing because they come out of the like air vent thing and like bounce off the screen. They sound honestly like pretty damn good for not having like speaker grills here. Now let's try the keyboard. I'm not expecting anything different. It feels identical. The touchpad is still great. It's still an Apple touchpad, and still a lot of Windows laptops need better touchpads. Is the camera any different? It looks the same. Does it sound any different? I'm just gonna say some stuff. I'm just gonna have to say some stuff, and then you're gonna hear what it sounds like. And I suspect it's probably gonna sound the same, and it looks pretty much the same. It looks good. On to the labs testing then, eh? Now, in terms of gaming performance, it's not gonna blow your socks off in terms of performance, but it seems like there's, depending on the game, from a frame or two to a couple of frames of improvement there. Anything that's CPU dependent, like Stellaris, which is like a real-time strategy kind of top-down game, there's a big improvement. And that also really shows up in productivity testing. So in Blender, on the CPU timeline, it was like half the time, which to me didn't seem like it made sense, but maybe this thing doesn't over thermal throttle as much or something. And the GPU test, 2 minutes down from 2 minutes and 45 seconds, that's a huge improvement. In Cinebench, multi-threaded scores going from 600 to 800, single-threaded scores going from 140 to 170. Photoshop Premiere, good performance bumps there. And in terms of the power consumption, like I mentioned with the M4 MacBook Pro, it's a little bit higher. They're giving these things a sprinkle in, just a little bit more juice in there. And then for battery, interestingly, Apple doesn't say that the M4 Air is better on battery. They list both the M3 Air and the M4 Air as having 18 hours of battery life. And while the laptops we tested didn't last nearly that long, in the more real world Plex video playback tests we do, both the M3 and the M4 Air performed about the same. So those extra CPU cores shouldn't hurt battery life very much. More battery life, more performance? Damn, girl. And then in terms of the display, it does hit the rated 500 nits brightness. We actually tested it around 520. So, I don't know what else there is to say. It's faster than the last generation. It's cheaper than the last generation. It has more RAM than the last generation. It's got more CPU cores than the last generation. It has more colorways than the last generation. All you get is more, except for the price, which is lower, like I said. I don't know that if I had an M3 Air, I would be running to the Apple Store to upgrade. I don't know if I would be running to the Apple Store if I had an M2 Air. I don't know if I'd run to the Apple Store if I had an M1 Air. But if you had an Intel MacBook Air or a Windows laptop, or maybe your MacBook died, this is still excellent. It is a really, really freaking great laptop and at an even better price than it was before. It's not cheap. But if you need something for work, you need something that does stuff, you should probably buy this. Most people I know buy MacBook Pros and they're stupid. They should just buy MacBook Air. It's plenty enough for most people.